What I've learned while making these videos is that every transaction and decision has its consequences. This is why trade trees are so fun, because a GM's decision to trade a player can have unforeseen consequences on not just their team, but the rest of the league. However, sometimes the most minute events that can't be controlled lead to the greatest consequences. This is the case for the Tampa Bay Rays. While the franchise began in 1998, they have become one of the best in terms of acquiring and developing players. Today, we're going to learn how some of these players derive from a game in 2002 that was never played because of rain. And if you have a butterfly effect or a trade tree that you want me to cover, leave it down in the comments. Alright, this starts in 2002. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays were one of the worst teams in baseball. As a result, they were competing for the #1 overall pick in the 2003 draft. With 1 week left to go, the Devil Rays were set to face the Yankees and Red Sox for their final 2 series of the season. While the Devil Rays had the worst record in the league heading into this final week, the Detroit Tigers were only 1 game better than the Devil Rays, so anything can happen. The Devil Rays won the first game of the Yankee series and then lost the next 2. So the game on September 26th was the series decider. However, that game was postponed because of rain. With this postponement happening so late in the season, the game only needed to be rescheduled if it affected the Yankees' playoff race. The Yankees were in a tight race with the Oakland A's for the AL's best record. If the Yankees finished a half game behind Oakland after game 162, then the Yankees would have to play a makeup game against the Devil Rays. However, because the Yankees swept the Orioles in their final series of the year, they finished with the same win total as the Oakland A's, but with 1 game unplayed. So the Yankees clinched home field advantage for the ALCS because they were 5-4 against the A's in the regular season. As for the Devil Rays, they ended the season with a record of 55-106, with 1 game unplayed. However, they were surprisingly tied for the worst record in the league with the Detroit Tigers, who also had a game that was never rescheduled. So to break this tie, the league looked at the 2001 standings, and because Tampa Bay had a worse record than Detroit, they were awarded the #1 overall pick for the 2003 draft. If the game on September 26th was never rained out, one of 2 scenarios happens. If the Yankees win, nothing changes, as the Yankees still end the year with a better record than the A's, and the Devil Rays definitively have a worse record than Detroit. But if the Devil Rays win that game, which they demonstrated they could accomplish with the first game of the series, the Yankees end the year with a worse record than the A's, and the Devil Rays have a better record than the Tigers, losing the #1 overall pick in the process. So this rainout ended up being the best case scenario for both the Yankees and Devil Rays. Well, the Yankees blew it in the playoffs against the eventual champions, the Anaheim Angels. As for the Devil Rays, in the 2003 draft, they selected someone who was a lock to be a top 2 pick, high school outfielder Delmon Young. Why does it matter that he would have been taken in the top 2? Well, at the time, the #1 overall pick couldn't be from the same league in consecutive seasons, despite the record. For example, the Twins selected #1 overall in the 2001 draft, but the Cubs had a worse record in 2000. Well, because a National League team selected first in the 2000 draft, an American League team had to pick first in 2001. In 2003, it was the American League's turn for #1 overall. So if the rainout didn't happen and the Tigers ended up with a worse record than the Devil Rays, the Tigers pick #1 overall and the Devil Rays pick #3 because a National League team had to pick second. This is how the Devil Rays ended up with Delmon Young at first overall. Just to get a feel on how hyped Delmon Young was, he was Baseball America's 2002 High School Player of the Year, and he was the first high school junior to be named California State Player of the Year since Eric Chavez in 1995, who by 2003 had established himself as one of the best young players in baseball. In fact, Young was turning heads before he stepped foot on a high school baseball field. As in 8th grade, he made quite the impression during a home run derby against high school players. It was safe to say that Delmon Young was a very hyped up prospect. Young spent a few years in the minor leagues, and by 2006, he was the #1 prospect in baseball, eventually making his big league debut later that year. After a decent stint in 2006, Young played all 162 games in 2007 as a 21-year-old. While he didn't immediately perform well like recent #1 prospects, Young still held his own, finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting behind Dustin Pedroia. But after the season, the Devil Rays traded Young in a 6-player deal to the Minnesota Twins in response to Torrey Hunter leaving the Twins and signing with the Angels. Trading a player who was once the league's #1 prospect is risky, especially when you just ended the season with 66 wins. But this was a unique opportunity for Tampa Bay to acquire a promising young starting pitcher. Along with starting shortstop replacement Jason Bartlett and relief prospect Eddie Moreland, the Devil Rays received former top 25 prospect Matt Garza. This was a guy who could fit nicely in a rotation with James Shields and Scott Kazmir. With each team losing 3 players, this is the kind of deal that takes a while to find a winner and loser. Well, surprisingly, it didn't take too long. Delmon Young was a league average hitter with his new team who missed the playoffs, while the Tampa Bay Rays surprisingly made the World Series for the first time in their history. They didn't win, but this team's sudden success meant the future was incredibly bright. The following season in 2009, Jason Bartlett seemingly became a new player, earning his first All-Star appearance as a result. But after returning to career norms, Bartlett was traded to the Padres after the 2010 season. At this point, Delmon Young was performing much better with the Twins, which earned him some MVP votes in 2010. But a poor start to the 2011 season led to a trade with Detroit. After this trade, the only player left from the initial Young trade was Matt Garza with the Rays. Between 2008 and 2010, Garza was consistently productive for the Rays. He even threw the first no-hitter in Rays history on July 26, 2010. However, to save money, the Rays traded Garza to the Cubs ahead of the 2011 season. Although the offer may have been too good to pass up, as the Rays received 5 players, one of whom was the best prospect in the Cubs organization, Chris Archer. Why did a 75-win Cubs team make this trade? Clearly, they believed they were ready to make that next step. Well, they were not. As for Garza, he played 2.5 productive seasons with the Cubs before being traded to the Rangers in mid-2013 for 4 players. 3 of these 4 players had successful stints with the Cubs, while Mike Olt never found his footing with the team. Garza spent the rest of the 2013 season with the Rangers and then signed with the Brewers in the offseason. Now back to the Rays, who received 5 players in the Garza trade. Hak-Ju Lee never made the big leagues, and Robinson Chirinos was traded to the Rangers in 2013. Brandon Gyers spent a few seasons on the team, with a couple of those seasons being pretty successful. Also, he was known for his knack of getting hit by pitches all the time, earning the nickname La Piñata. Then there's Sam Fuld, the current GM of the Philadelphia Phillies. He made an immediate impact for the Rays, but he was best known for his great defense, with David Price once saying, "I heard that the world was covered by 75% water and the other 25% is covered by Sam Fuld." Now for the biggest name the Rays received, Chris Archer. Prior to the trade, Archer was Baseball America's 27th best prospect. But for him to take the next step, he needed to develop a third pitch to complement his fastball and slider. He eventually settled with a changeup and sinker. Archer made his debut on June 20th, 2012, but he didn't spend significant time on the big league roster until 2013. Finishing 3rd in AL Rookie of the Year voting. At the beginning of the 2014 season, Archer signed a 6-year extension with the team, with the ability to extend to 8 years. For the next several years, Archer was a dependable starting pitcher, representing the Rays in 2 All-Star games and finishing 5th in Cy Young voting in 2015. However, on the 2018 trade deadline, Archer was traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates in a big deal involving former top prospect Tyler Glasnow, 2018 top prospect Austin Meadows, and 2017 first rounder Shane Baz. The Pirates were 3 games out of the wild card race, and they felt the time was right for a playoff push. Well, the Pirates missed the 2018 postseason, and Archer's tenure was disappointing as it was filled with underperformance and injuries. Funny enough, Archer eventually found his way back to the Rays when he pitched for them in 2021. So far, the Rays have fared very well from the Archer trade. Glasnow and Meadows were top prospects before joining the Rays, and their talents have translated well. Unfortunately, Glasnow has battled multiple injuries, most recently with Tommy John surgery sidelining him until 2023. But in his limited playing time, he is a fantastic pitcher. Austin Meadows was an all-star in his first full season in 2019. While he's regressed a little bit, he's expected to be part of the Rays lineup lineup for the next few years. You know, unless he's traded, in which case this trade tree continues. Now for the final player of the deal, Shane Baz. The former first rounder has developed into one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. His big league stint in 2021 was short, but he showcased how well he can dominate hitters. Baz has a bright future in this league, and he may end up being the best player in this trade tree. This trade tree ended up being incredible for the Rays. In fact, if you head on over to DelmonYoungTradeTree.com, it breaks down how much WAR the Rays have accumulated in this trade tree. Up to 2020, the Rays accumulated 47.4 WAR, and when you add in 2021 stats, this number goes to 52.1. While Delmon Young may not have lived up to the hype with the Twins, he's known by a couple fan bases for his contributions in the postseason, notably the Detroit Tigers and Baltimore Orioles. Being a #1 overall pick isn't easy, as the expectations are massive. But Young played 10 seasons in MLB and had several notable moments in his career. Not many people can accomplish that. With this in mind, it's astonishing that the careers of all the players we've talked about today stem from a rainout in 2002. If the rain clouds that day decided to alter their path even slightly, baseball history and notably Rays history could look much different. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, and leave your butterfly effect scenario or trade tree in the comments. Subscribe to Raving Sports and check out my channel, SportStorm. Thanks for watching.